Good evening, everybody. It's great to be back on Let's Talk. Yeah, we're really getting very close now to going back to our day job. You'll be glad to hear. It looks like the 4th of July is our opening date, and let's hope it is, because I think we're all getting to the point now where we need to start cutting some hair and start doing what we do best. Over the next couple of weeks, we still have a few lives that we want to share with you, because we've been having such a great time, and we love the interaction and the communication with you guys, and thanks for all your support and all the great comments. And I'm glad you're enjoying what we're doing, because we certainly enjoy putting them together. When we started doing this a few weeks ago, the idea was just to create a little bit of dialogue with all our friends and followers out there, but also just to touch base with the people that we know in the industry. And I really wanted to try to talk to people who I considered to be mavericks within the industry, people who step outside the norm of what is considered to be the usual route within the hairdressing industry, people who've done things very differently and very uniquely. And some of those people have been incredibly inspiring just talking to them. And for me, I know so much more about myself having spoken to people who I admire. So I hope I don't sound like too much like a fanboy when I'm talking to the guys, because obviously I am an admirer of their work, but I also know them usually personally. So trying to get stuff about them that I don't know already is fun, and I really enjoy doing it. Tonight we're going to take a very different route in terms of the people that we've been speaking to. Tonight's guest is Josh Lamonaca, and Josh, for me, he's one of the most he's a bit of a force of nature in some ways, because I was familiar with his work because I do follow a lot of barbers and men's hairdressers, but I actually wasn't aware of just the impact that he'd had on the industry until I was in Moscow with Dove Palmer last October. I was at the Moscow Barber Week. And when we arrived, I met Josh, and we walked into the arena together, and he was literally mobbed. People were coming from everywhere to speak to him, get him to sign things, get their photographs taken with him. I've been in a few celebrities' company over the years, so I know how celebrities, are treated and how people react towards them. But seeing the way people had reacted towards Josh was a completely new phenomenon to me, because even though over the years I've been in the company of people like Anthony Muscolo, and I've seen Vidal Sassoon up close, I don't think I've ever quite seen people being so fanatical as I had seen them be with Josh. And it also for me, it showed just exactly where the industry's at in terms of men's hairdressing, men's education, and men's barbering. And it blew my mind. That event actually in itself was phenomenal, because not only were there some amazing artists and talented people there, but actually the Russian barbering scene was just incredible. And literally Josh was revered there as a demigod. And actually it made me slightly embarrassed, and I wanted to go home because nobody knew who I was, unfortunately. We have Josh.
Amazing.
We have him here with us. I know you've just literally made all the way from London to join us here tonight, Josh. You're very welcome. It's great to see
man.
You. You look amazing.
Thank you so much for your patience. I apologise for the small delay.
It's absolutely no problem. As you are very well aware now, I can talk for hours. So
I was hoping you'd stalled everyone for me so I could just get in time. Thank you.
Just before we get into, because there's so much I want to talk to you about, and there are things that that we had chat about when we were in Moscow, because that's the last time we've seen each other. I know we've spoken a few times since then, but how's things been for you? What's it been like the last 3 months?
It's been a whole different life experience, if I'm honest with you. As you can imagine, I travel around the world week to week, so being home for this amount of time is like a different life. I can't remember the last time I experienced just sort of being at home. Obviously the same for everyone really, being at home, but just not getting on a plane, not having to stand in front of people, teach people. You know, I feel like I'm the full-time dad now, which is amazing, you know, in so many ways. It's been fantastic. You know, overall, it's been positive. I can't deny.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all felt that this was. I mean, because we travel a lot with work and we're always out and about, it's made me think differently about what I want to do in the future. But you are much younger than I am. What's it
Sure,
making you
sure.
think of the future?
Um, Good question. Listen, I can't deny it. I love what I do. I love flying around the world. I love meeting new people. I love experiencing culture and meeting new students and making many new friends. And yeah, you know, I'm young. I've still got time in me to do that. But I certainly was feeling after sort of 3 to 4 years traveling, I was getting to a point where, you know, I could do with a break, you know, and it's really really interesting because I didn't want to take a break. And it's funny because every single year I say to myself in January, you know what? I'm going to slow down. I'm going to spend time more with my family. I'm going to relax a little bit more. But all of a sudden, I seem to just speed up, and the
Mhm.
requests keep coming, and I keep doing what I do, and it becomes a vicious cycle because it's not work. It almost becomes like an obsession, an addiction, and that's also quite dangerous, you know, because of course, if you work too much, you're going to lose yourself. So I'm really, really thankful for how nature has made this happen for all of us. But as for the future, I see a lot of changes. I see a lot of changes, and I see a lot of good changes. I see myself doing less international stuff by choice, and I see myself focusing obviously more online, being widely accessible to, you know, all parts of the globe. I want to focus on our beginners course. We have a beginners course that we just launched this year. I want to focus on getting the right education to people that want to start in this industry, because I know that there's many education facilities out there that are providing education for beginners, and there's a lot of stigma around people that are doing beginner education. And I want to be able to crack the status quo with our education and see how good we can bring new people to this industry and inspire them to have a fulfilling and lasting career. So that's where my focus and attention is going to go, as well as, you know, just being a little bit more creative and not focusing on, Paul, let me put it this way. I've spent the last 3 years developing other people, developing students around the world, developing countries in their barbering, even if it's a small drop in the ocean of having an influence on some of these countries. I want to start to focus on myself and our team to producing key imagery that, you know, could be globally iconic, because I feel like that's something that we didn't really focus on. You know, we've done, you know, tremendous haircuts that have been replicated around the world, but we haven't really documented them in a way that you know we'd like to really. So a little bit more of us in the future, you know, rather than so much giving.
I mean, I think of all the people that I've spoken to on this, I mean, I haven't done hundreds of lives. I've chosen people that I'm really interested in. I think for me, that has been the most concise opening we've had. It's just, I mean, I feel like you've got your vision absolutely nailed down. You know exactly where you're taking this, and you've used this time to work out what the
You know,
next.
you know, it's really funny because obviously, regarding the year 2020, there was a surge of 2020 vision, and I I always it didn't make me feel right whenever I thought of the term 2020 vision, because I've had this vision since I started, since I was 18 and I first went to Salon International. I saw these guys on stage. I saw what education could be about. I had the vision from then. You know, and it's just so funny that, you know, 2020's come along, everyone's had the 2020 vision, but then everyone's had a veil over their face and mask and this, that, and the other, and no one's got 2020 vision any longer. You know, it's funny, man.
Well, listen, you know, you just mentioned going to Salon International when you were young. Talk to us about that. I mean, what made you come into this world of men's education and barbering and everything, because
Sure, man.
you hit it just.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, did you hear me
Sweet.
though? No.
Yeah, just missed the last bit, but yeah, I got you. So I got into the industry because I was really into football, and obviously David Beckham was a global icon for his hair, and I really took inspiration from him for some of my hairstyles, and it led me into barbering. And when I went to Salon International for the first time, and I saw these platform artists, and it was like Chris Foster, there was Simon at the time, and there wasn't too many others, but it was just the kind of at the time it would have struck me like ego, you know. It would have struck me like, look, these guys are the man, they look at them, they're so cool, they're doing cool haircuts, people are clapping and laughing and cheering, and obviously being a young 18-year-old, you're full of spunk, and the ego wants to get hold of it. And as I've got into it, I've kind of realized that it's not actually about you, it's about everyone else, which is where the kind of education thing come in. And that's what separates what I believe a really good educator to an absolutely phenomenal educator. Um, it's about being able to share rather than show. And one thing that I'll always say when it comes to even like social media is that, look, if you're trying to show off, it will feed your ego. But if you're trying to share something, it will feed you and your family. And that's the difference between where the ego comes in and where the purity of education and a teacher, an educator comes in, you know?
So, saying what you just said there is taking me down a different route. Where do you think your industry is at right now? Because it is such a testosterone-driven industry. I mean, the barber men's hairdressing industry is so tattoos and beards and men being very masculine. Yet, your side to it comes from a very different perspective. How do you see that moving forward?
Well, I think it's quite obvious how barbering has changed over the last sort of 5 years. Even if we take it 10 years ago, it was the word barbered is a great way to sum up how men are. If we take it to now, it's kind of like it's more dressed, it's more casual, it's softer, it's not always fade, fade, fade. It's there's a broad spectrum between the styles that we see now, and you can see that in the product market as well. It's very, very apparent that the wave of the men's cycle and fashion and style has changed along the last 5 to 10 years. So definitely, yeah, it was very, very masculine, 5, 10 years ago, and not going to say it's turning feminine, but it's softening. It's becoming more variant in its approach, and that even includes how we work as hair cutters. We're becoming more fluid with our scissor work, in the barbering industry. So there's a huge crossover between, barbering and hairdressing at the moment. And that's where hairdressers want to learn a little bit more about barbering, and barbers want to learn a little bit more about hairdressing. And how does that affect the industry? Well, it shoots us up in quality, which is fantastic. And if we get shot up in quality, we can help elevate our worth, which means we increase our prices. Why wouldn't we? What's the end goal? If we're not working to get higher and higher throughout this industry, then what are we working towards? If we're not working towards anything, then there's no end goal. If there's no end goal, there's no motivation. If there's no motivation, you're going to be saying, I'm bored, I want out of this industry. That's not what we want. We want yeah.
Looking at your work, it's quite obvious, because I've gone back over your Instagram feed over the last, and it's quite obvious there has been a transition from the stuff that people copy that you do, that you have done, to the work that you're now doing, which has a much more sessionist aspect to it. It looks like the sort of stuff that we see in magazines like GQ and Arena. So there's been a transition, okay? But the work that people still copy that is yours is still got that traditional vibe. How can you break away from that?
Well, I think when it comes to working like in traditional barbering, I don't think we can ever work away from that. I think that is the core of the fundamentals of men. You know, you've got two avenues. You've got something that's classic, you've got something that's creative. You know, everything that's classic is going to be, it's going to stay forever. It's going to live eternally in barbering. And as for the sort of maybe the more recent stuff that you say, that I've been working on or working towards, um, I don't necessarily say that's more creative, but the term session could be good because it is sort of more relaxed, a more relaxed way of working. Maybe not so much more precision based, maybe sort of more textured based, more softer. Um, how can we break away? Always comes back down to consultation if you bring it back to our clientele and as a service. You know, it's about being able to evolve because look, if you've only got the techniques of, you know, working as a barber or working barbered looks, that's all you're going to reach. If you haven't got the understanding or the education to be able to veer off and try new things, you will never plant the seed in the consultation to your clients. So how can you expect to succeed without planting the seed, you know?
One of the other things that kind of struck me about your rapid rise to fame and just the sheer level of popularity and awareness there is out there of not just you, but men bar in general and all your affiliated partners, is that people have an obsession with your work. When did you become aware of that, or are you aware of that?
Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard the word obsessed with people about my work, but it sounds powerful. Definitely, I've seen my work being replicated, and you know, it's flattering. Um, but I also want to see more from other people. You know, I want to see people take my work and reinvent it rather than recreate it. You know, um, but again, it comes down to having a free mind. You know, and that's something that I'm not going to teach someone to have a free mind necessarily, because it has to come from you. But here's what I can do. I can take you through the fundamentals. I can take you through a formula to, you know, think about hair in a different way, so you can go and put your own imagination to it. You know, I think that's the beauty about our industry is that everyone is individual. But if you start copying someone, you're never going to identify yourself in a creative way. You know, and you know, listen, everyone is born creative. We are God's people, and He is the creator, and we are the creation. And you know, if you don't believe that you have something unique, individual, a certain taste, then you're always going to be following or copying. You know, and it's in at Menspire, we really want to develop leaders. I don't want to show my team work and then recreate it. I want them to develop their own unique sense of identity so that they can share with the world, and you know, it keeps circulating. You know, that's the ideal sort of industry that we want.
Yeah, but I think to me, the thing that's really exciting for me whenever I've been looking back over your work, and also as I've got to know you, the thing is, obviously we can hear the passion in your voice, but you seem to have used social media and your ability to educate in a very authentic, original way. And quite rightly, you also say that people who put stuff on Instagram and Facebook for their own purposes don't get the benefits that you get, because what you get from what the response you get is pure love, that people love what you do. How do you think you would have managed if there hadn't have been social media?
Well, this is the thing, man. This is what gets me about social media now. Like, when I was trying to build a reputation, when I was trying to get noticed, there wasn't social media. We're talking, you know, 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, where, you know, the only kind of recognition you would get, it would be in the HJ Journal or one of these hair magazines. And to get in a hair magazine back then, like, you'd need to be part of a huge company or you'd need to have a PR. And as an 18, 19-year-old boy working from his grandmother's garage, like, no one's going to notice you unless you try and get into a competition. But if you didn't have a company behind you, the chances of you getting far are very, very slim. And unlike today, like, if you do a couple of nice haircuts, you put it on your own social media, a scissor ambassador comes to you, a product company comes to you and says, do you want to be an ambassador or, whatever, an educator for us? It's that easy, So it's interesting how social media has, been a huge, huge benefit to so much talent out there. And, I guess when we started our first salon at Menspire in 2014, Instagram was just kicking off. And myself and Samuel Palmer, my business partner, we were well known in our city for doing cool haircuts for young guys. And by the time we'd start putting it online, we started to attract attention not only from, customers, but from barbers. And that's how we sort of started to, gain a small reputation for doing cool, neat, future, fashion-focused haircuts. That eventually led to, a great stimulation from more and more and more and more people, enjoying what we do and what we put out. So that's kind of the role in how things got moving for us in social media.
What do you think the impact social media has had on men's hairdressing, barbering, and men's education in general, outside what you do? I mean, are you cynical about it? Because you're quite outspoken. I mean, you'll tell people what you think. So, what's
absolutely. I think social media has played a huge part for barbering. Like, it's frightening now how good some barbers are in a short amount of time. Like, we've got one guy in our team, Seb Massey, who's like, I think he's been barbering for like 10 months. But some of the work that he does, it's just like, you would have been thinking that this guy's been barbering for 10 years. And it's frightening how much information that they can absorb and inspiration that they can take from social media. Social media has been fantastic. I don't care what anyone says, negative, this, that, and the other. It is what you make it. If you receive negativity from being on social media, that's because you're looking in the wrong places. True or false?
Yeah, no, I agree.
And listen, there are so many amazing people to follow. And it's not to say that you want to follow them because you want to imitate them. These are people that we should absorb positive energy from, passion from, so that we can respond with it and revive with it. So for me, social media has made a huge impact in barbering. It's done us amazing because, like I say, if we get better as an industry in barbering, we're going to want to put our prices up. If we put our prices up, we're going to feel more valued. And if we feel more valued, that self-worth is going to, continue to rise. We're going to go home fulfilled and we're going to go back to work inspired. So it's a constant cycle.
Josh, let's go back to, at the very beginning of your career, because we had a very quick chat just before we came on here, because I was sort of aware that you'd had a little bit of hairdressing experience. Talk us through being a barber, going into hairdressing, and then making the decision to come back out and go into gents hairdressing and education.
Yeah, sure. So I started off when I was 15, cutting my own hair, eventually cutting my friend's hair as a hobby. I was playing football at the time, so I had the opportunity to cut loads of my teammates, during training and before matches. So I was really, really into men's hair. Once I'd done a course at college, I'd finished a 1-year course in barbering, and I was I got Student of the Year award. And so at that point, I was like, okay, cool. Apparently I'm really good. So at that point, the head of the department said, why don't you try women's hair for a year, because you can transfer some of the units. I thought, okay, not really interested that much, to be honest with you, but I'm going to do it because, well, I might as well. Anyway, I got 3 months in and I just found it so difficult, man. I was just like, and at the time, I was progressing in barbering as well. So I was like, here I am doing men's hair. I'm the man, you know. And then here I come and start doing women's hair, and I was like, I'm nothing, you know. So it humbled me. It humbled me so much because I then started to learn how much more there was to learn. And, you know, from that point, I didn't give up because it's not in my nature to give up. And I take that from doing sport and being disciplined. And I met Mario from Hob in Mill Hill because he was working at the college. And eventually, my head of department hooked me up to go and shadow him 1 day a week. So there I was doing college 3 days a week. I was working in the barbershop 2 days a week. I was shadowing him 1 day a week, and I was working from home one more day. So I was immersed 7 days a week. I really loved what I saw when I saw Mario working. It was so clean, precise, and I'd never seen it in women's hair before. It was so technical and structured, and it was just like, this guy's just hitting hair nail on the head, like so perfect. And I loved it. I just loved it, man. And I wanted it. And I just remember wanting to learn more and more and more. And it just became like an addiction. Don't get me wrong, it was hard. I wasn't getting it straight away, you know. But they saw my men's work and they said to me, you know, look, if we take you up to our academy, would you like to come and work for us? So I was like, yeah, fantastic. Now, the whole reason why I went, you know, to work with this company is because I wanted to do women's hair. I really wanted to do women's hair. I wanted to progress. I loved doing short hair, bobs, pixie haircuts, you know, still the precision-based, like barbering type stuff. The blow drying, man, I did not like the blow drying, that's for sure. That used to just break my back. It just used to make me sweat. And I could never just get this kind of style, the glorious, glamorous styling right. But you give me a comb and a pair of scissors, and I was just like creating lovely stuff. And that's where I kind of realized, look, I'm working towards a kind of just a sector of hair, but that's fine. If I can master that, I'll be happy with that, you know. And eventually, you know, the whole idea was, I had this dream. I was 18, you know, back at college. I had this dream. I wanted to be on stage doing men's hair, and I thought by going to this company, I would be able to be elevated in the status in a way that maybe, with a big company behind me, maybe I might just reach that dream. Anyway, nonetheless, as I was working, I was a victim of my own success, and I was, you know, I was pretty much in the salon doing 70% of men's hair, and then going home and then cutting more men's hair. So I was just really became immersed in doing men's hair full time, basically, and eventually it got to a point where I kind of asked and requested that I know, you know exactly where, you know, some of the setbacks were. I tried to get more involved in the company with regarding men's work and stuff, but, you know, they're a company that do what they do, and that was it at the time. So I didn't really get an opportunity to help develop anything there. And, you know, eventually I just said, well, fine, I'm not going to let anyone limit where I want to be and where I want to go. And I eventually left and started to work as a teacher in London, in Shoreditch. And I thought, right, now I'm a teacher. This is it. Like, I'm gonna get my platform. Man, I was 23 at the time, and they were a small company. They made me redundant. I was sat there, 23 years old. 5 years later, still no stage, still no platform, nothing. And I was just, I couldn't work it out. I was gutted. Couldn't work it out. And I thought to myself, you know what? Enough's enough. I'm going to do it by myself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a team of people that I can help give this opportunity to that I never had. And that's when myself and Sam reconnected, because we used to go to school together, but we weren't quite friends necessarily. But we could see at the end of school time when we were 16, we were both into our hairstyles. Eventually, he was working at Sanriz. He had an amazing youthful career at Sanriz. He was part of the Project X team, the young Schwarzkopf artistic team, part of the Sanriz young artistic. You know, he'd done everything that I wanted to do, and there I was at 23, just trying to get a glimpse, trying to get a little look, and where he'd done so much of it, he was tired of it. but wanted to create a salon brand that was niche. And that's how we had such a beautiful harmony between myself and my business partner, because he wanted to create this beautiful, strong brand, and I wanted to be part of the creativity that we developed as a brand. And you know, before long, the roles reversed, and he was the more managerial and is, and I've been the more creative and leading us through different avenues, and you know, building up a kind of global respect, you know. 6 years later, we have 13 salons and 2 academies, you know, so it's been fantastic.
It is a pretty phenomenal story. And, you know, Dove Palmer, our mutual friend,
Yeah,
when he was telling me a little bit about your story, because for some reason, when you recognize a name, you think that name's been around for a long time. You know,
yeah,
oh, they've been around forever. So I was really surprised when I found out that you literally only started Men's Spa in 2014.
yeah,
At
yeah.
what stage, at what stage after you opened that you started, did you realize that you'd created a signature brand? Was it very soon, or?
We were very confident in our brand from the beginning. Like, I was working in my grandmother's garage doing nearly 80, 90 haircuts a week. Sam was working at his mum's house doing near the same. So we kind of had a wealth of customers. So we definitely knew that as a consumer brand, we would do very, very well. You know, we kind of done a year in the salon, and we were kind of like not understanding why we wasn't getting so much more noticed in the industry as such. Definitely with consumers, we were packed. You know, we our first salon in 18 months, we had to shut down and move out to a bigger salon twice the size because we just couldn't take the capacity. But yeah, it wasn't until we kind of built this brand new shop in 2015, October 2015, 18 months after we started, did we start to get noticed. We built a £40,000 barber shop, which you know, back then for people that didn't have investment, it's quite a lot of money. And we just built this kind of, you know, at the time it looked like just a really cool barbershop. Like, it wasn't like a traditional barbershop. It was more like, you know, how maybe cafes and restaurants look. You know, it was just had that really cool, unique look to it. And at the time, that was different. And we started to build a bigger team, and with more people, we became more noticed. And it wasn't probably about until, you know, 2015, you know, 16 that we started to get noticed, you know, and that's when we started to uh, take international interest. So that's when it sort of started to pick up, I would say.
And when you know, obviously you had this kind of signature look, you had these little trademark aspects to your work. When did you start seeing other people's doing or using those aspects? I mean, was it literally right
Yeah,
away?
sure. It was pretty much right away. I'm not gonna lie. It was. I just remember. I tell you what. One of the looks that was like, I, I'm not gonna say I owned it or I started it, but certainly we as a kind of group and as a generation, it was just popping in a little line in the side of the head. Like, of course, lines and tram lines have been around for a long time, but it was pretty much like my hair now. It was a little textured quiff with a little line in the side, and I'd done it for a reality TV star back then in 2013, 14, and because he was on TV, it kind of kicked off a little bit in for the consumers. And obviously, once barbers had noticed that we were doing just little tram lines with cool textured haircuts, it started to catch on. So it was quite from an early start that, you know, we were being replicated from around, you know, many barbers, and then even a crop. You know, we were sort of doing like really textured crops, not just like the casual French crop, short back and sides. We were doing kind of just different textured crops. People would then replicate, and then it was, you know, loads of different things. You know, more quiffed and rolled back with a skin fade, and then it came to being a bit more graphic in the sides, and yeah, just as we do, they do. You know.
And did you have any reference points? I mean, when you look back over that, you know, I suppose the men's hairdressing world has really been 20 years in the most recent past in the making. And there were some big names around at the very beginning. I remember Eddie Phelan had a huge reputation for
Oh
men.
yeah.
I mean, and he was a big influence on a lot of young
Hmm.
barbers. Was there anybody like that who sort of had indicated to you this was the right direction to go, or was it purely heartfelt and from the soul?
Yeah, interesting. Like, when I was getting into barbering as such, I would I would have looked up at, Chris Foster. I would have looked up at MK. I would have looked up at Simon Shaw, because they were the kind of three key players at Salon International. There wasn't anyone else in terms of men's hair. Eventually, as I started to get into hairdressing, I would look at people like Errol Douglas, Jamie Stevens, Mark Hayes, like all those kind of hairdressing icons. Um, and in terms of someone saying to me, you're on the right direction or this, that, and the other, I remember, someone in particular saying that, you know what, you're going to find it very, very difficult unless you have backing from a clipper brand, scissor brand, product brand. And it wasn't for that moment that I said, you know what, forget it. We're going to create our own brand and do our own thing and drive our own success from our own doings. That we did. And that's how it evolved. And certainly, as for AD Phelan, that was a big inspiration for Sam, because he was in the hairdressing field at a young age. So he looked up to a different kind of variety of hairdressers, as I looked over towards the barbers. So it was a really, really humbling harmony between myself and Sam, that we had this little crossover of technique, inspiration, education, and that's how it evolved, really.
I mean, 13 salons in 6 years is a pretty phenomenal amount of salons. I mean, choose and where do you choose? Are they partners? Are they franchises? How does it work?
Sure. So we don't franchise, purely because we thought about that as a feeling, and we generated the feeling that it's not really what we want to do. We kind of want to build people from within and then have partners. Now, obviously, we know as a franchise, yeah, you might make more money, but for us, it's not so much about the currency. It's more so about leaving a legacy, and the only way we can do that is by trusted partners, partners that have worked with us and that have the same vision as us. So if we can create more leaders, then we can create more legacy, and that's a simple equation for us.
And I mean, and in terms of how big you can be, is there a set goal in terms of salons or countries you want to be in, or is it very organic?
Yeah, very organic. We haven't set any goals. We haven't set anything like I want 100 salons in 10 years or nothing like that. We haven't done nothing like that. Everything with us has been completely natural. If there's an opportunity and someone wants to take it and it feels right, then we go with it. It's not a case of, right, this is our target and we've got to meet it. And how do we do it? It's we're very, very happy and content with what we have right now. And should there be a good opportunity that arises with anyone from our team, then we'll happily support it. And that's what we want. Look, at the end of the day, if someone from our team wants to go solo right now, that's absolutely fine. But what they won't get with that is our support network. And our support network is just growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And the reason being is because, look, if I turn to my left and I'm having a bad day, that guy's going to pick me up. If I turn to my right and I'm having a bad day, that guy's going to pick me up. And if I'm not feeling right, they're going to turn around to me, hey, come on, keep going. And that's just the kind of support network that we need, if we want to, recreate beautiful salons and beautiful business. So if people work with us and they decide that they want to partner with us, they've got that support. They don't have to start from zero. They don't have to start from, building a logo, building this, building that, building clientele, because we're building that from within. So much so that as soon as someone puts something out there, For example, if Seb wants to go and make something happen in his hometown, which is Cambridge, which is, you know, miles away from us, the support network will be amazing straight from the off because we've had the experience and we're just going to invest that into him. And all he has to do is build a team and be a leader. And obviously we want to nurture that.
One of the things, Josh, that I am very interested in, and I'm really excited to hear your response to this because it's an interesting subject. I spend a lot of time in the States, and every year that I'm there, the number of lady barbers and female men's hairdressers increases by the year. It's huge. On the American cruise stage, the last time I was there, they had 3 lady barbers. There was no guys on stage. And the audience was packed with women. Culturally, do you think it's different in the UK? Or do you think it's different in other parts of the world?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's different. I would say that, you know, female barbering as such is rising, and so be it. They've got such a great advantage in the barbering industry. You know, they're great with people the majority of the time, and you know, there's some great haircutters, and if they can influence more of those people, fantastic. Yeah, I'm all for it. You know, I think it's a wonderful industry to be part of, whether you're male or female. The same as, you know, us in men's hairdressing. There's a lot of men that cut women's hair. You know, why not?
And are there, do women come to your salons?
As in customers?
Customers.
Do you know what? It's interesting, actually. I feel like we've got such a male dominated environment that we don't really. We don't. I mean, I'm not in the salon at all nowadays, as I'm doing sort of full-time education. So I kind of don't have those answers. But as far as I'm aware, when I was in the salon, we didn't really. Maybe one. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I know that it's becoming a controversial point that, you know, because there's obviously the price structure. Women with short hair want to know why they can't go to a barber to have a hair. And I think it's going to have to be acknowledged and faced in the future. But as an industry, would you consider it something that you would look at more favorably in the future, open up the door, or something you just don't think about at all?
You know what? It's interesting because I used to cut women's hair, and my business partner and many of my business partners cut women's hair as well. And I think we've toyed around with the idea of having a not just a men's spire, but a femme spire. But I don't think it's going to be a road that we go down because, you know, there are so many people that do it and would do it better than us. So, you know, there's no reason for us to. We're going to stick to what we know because we love what we do. And I think that's clear, really. We don't want to sort of take advantage of an industry that we don't know so well. We haven't practiced so well. So we leave it to those that do, you know.
But you do realise you've just given somebody a great name for a lady.
Yep.
Just about to patent that name, right?
Yeah. Full of ideas, man. Full of ideas.
I mean, I think, you know, looking at men's hairdressing as in the future. I mean, how long can it continue to be competition of the fades? I mean, is anyone ever going to get any better at fading hair than they do now? It's just
yeah, it's interesting. But I'll tell you one thing though. You know, fading now to how fading was 5 years ago, it has changed dramatically, and the level has increased. So when I think about fading now and the fading in 5 years, I can't see it getting any better. Like, I think we've definitely reached the time where technical ability in terms of barbering is at an all-time high, you know, and that's because there's so many, you know, education out there. There's so much education out there, and there's so many people helping people. There's so much information out there. The internet's here, social media, YouTube. There's a lot of sources where people can get information. You know?
I mean, obviously you travel all over the world. What areas in the world, whereabouts in the world do you think the standard of barbering has got to an exceptional level in a short space of time? Is there anywhere you think is really rapidly getting better and better?
Absolutely, yeah. 2 places that come to my mind immediately is Russia and Brazil, and also Iran, strangely enough. Yeah, you know, Both countries, Russia and Brazil. I've had the wonderful opportunity to do lots of education in, and you know, if I could claim that I've got a drop in the ocean of influence over those two countries, you know, I'd be more than pleased. You know, so yep, definitely a few countries out there that I feel like, you know, they've just shot into great technical excellence. I would say those kind of three really.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, the UK, we fantastic. We've got lots of style, and you know, we're on the game. But in terms of like rapid growth, I would say Russia and Brazil for sure.
But you just said something there that I think always gives the UK the edge, and that is that natural understanding, great culture and style, and that real unique ability in this country to understand fashion. How do you think that flows with other countries that doesn't have that culture or heritage?
Well, good question. And very simply, what happens is they just copy. But when they copy, they copy so well,
Mm.
you know. So it makes them look like they are doing great. You know, they're doing great work. But again, they'll always be the first to fall behind as well,
Mhm.
because we will always evolve and reinvent ourselves here in the UK because we're so fashion focused, style focused, to the point where when we move on, they're still doing the old things until they clock
Mhm.
that they've got to do something new, and that's when they start to replicate again and again and again.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the one thing that we have prominent in the UK, you know, is the ability to constantly reinvent ourselves and push it out there, really.
One of the things that's also very interesting is that, weirdly enough, it doesn't seem that the barbering industry, men's hairdressing industry, in the Far East is as advanced as its female counterpart. Have you any feelings on that? Have you noticed that, or do you think it is big, but we just don't hear about it?
In terms of barbering not being so good as hairdressing in other countries, is that what you're saying?
Well, if you look at the Far East, like China, Japan, a lot of the
Yeah.
Asian, they just don't have that same barbering men's hairdressing culture as they
Mm.
do ladies hairdressing. It seems that it's not really captured the imagination there in the same way as it has in other parts of the world. Is it something you've noticed, or?
Interesting. You know what? I haven't been able to explore, you know, of all the places I've been in the world, I haven't really been able to you know, go to the Far East as such, and them type of places. I've been to South Korea. I've been to Indonesia.
Mm,
Um, you know, and that's only a small part of my experience over that way. But what I can say, something that I did notice about the way that they were, which might be an integral part to why they're not as advanced as us, is
mm,
that there is a lack of emotion. And I think that, you know, when we go to Italy, when we go to Spain, here in England, you know, we have so much emotion, especially in the Mediterranean. We're so
mm,
passionate about what we do. There's so much emotion, and I think they don't have that there. And if you don't have emotion, then you can't trigger passion. And if you can't put passion into your work, the energy that you're trying to put into it is, well, the practice isn't as much. You don't
mm,
have the eagerness to practice. And we all know that the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And the better you're going to get, you're going to reinvent the passion for it to keep going and going and going. And
mm.
that's the only one thing that I could probably, you know, pinpoint. I could be completely wrong, but that's just my opinion. That's what I've experienced. I've experienced that there's a kind of lack of emotion. And, you know, when I cut hair, it's emotional. You know, it is. It's a part of me that wants to reflect into my haircuts and into my style that shows the energy, it shows the passion inside it, and the execution that comes with it. And that's it, really.
Mm. When we were at the Russian Barber Week and we were judging the competition, um, you were quite honest and to a degree, maybe even slightly brutally critical of some of the work on on the floor. Um, Was that because you know they're capable of better, or was it because you were disappointed, or I mean, what did you think? I mean, I'd not been a barber. What was your real feelings on the work?
Yeah, so I remember having this conversation with you because I'd done a lot of work in Russia. I've been to Russia so many times, and I've seen so many fantastic haircutters. Um, and what I saw in the competition was just not that of which I knew about Russia. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's that thing, it's that simplicity. And I think when people think competition, they think creative, they think overdone, trying too hard, and it should be the complete reverse, which is the more relaxed, less is more, simplicity is key, show us some originality, and that will be your winner. And it was just, I mean, yourself, you was there. It was just a lot of it was just too try hard, and it almost just lacked a lot of taste,
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
it was a shame because it,
yeah.
it I think what we saw there, Paul, and I think you'll agree with me, is that we saw a lot of good technique, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
good handling of the hair, good sectioning, clean cutting lines. But when it came to the end result, it was just like, well, what's happened there? It looked like he was doing so well. Body
Yeah.
position, everything. They had all the credentials. But when it came to the end result, it was just like, not sure
Mm.
what's happened.
Yeah,
Either lacked imagination, lacked execution, or was just totally, totally off.
yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think that really what happened, and I think it goes back to our earlier question. It's if they don't know where this idea is coming from, then they probably don't know where to finish.
Hmm.
Because if you take, I mean, there was one particular guy who was completely copying one of the showroom looks, but obviously the
Okay.
guys know exactly where that idea has come from. They live, breathe, and eat it. And this
Yeah.
kid was doing a great job until he decided to overdo it, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
he lost some
Yeah.
result. So you and I are both judging the precision haircutting championships, which Dove and the guys from Rush are currently running, and so that must be interesting for you because you're going to be judging essentially ladies hairdressing.
Yeah. Sure.
How have you enjoyed?
Yeah. I mean, listen. When it comes to hair, men's or women's, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's, do you have a keen eye, and how is your taste? And I'm really, really excited to kind of dive into it because, look, I haven't cut women's hair in years, but the techniques remain the same. So I'm super excited to get involved and just voice my opinion and do the scores and just look at the work that it's the incredible work, might I say, as well, which so far it's amazing. It makes me want to get back into it, but I feel like I've definitely missed the boat now, but never mind.
Well, I mean, there's so many of those elements that's in that aspect of work that is now incorporated into a lot of men's hairdressing. Do you
Yeah.
see a future for uh, a men's part of the precision hairdressing championships?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, Dove has spoken to me about some of the men's stuff as well. I think it'd be a great idea. I think it'd be fantastic. But again, what comes with it, as we've seen in Russia, is that there kind of needs to be taught more about competition.
Hmm.
Because it could go one of two ways. We could have just really, really beautiful work, or we could have work that's just all gone wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's an interesting point for education. Could we see if competitions are going to continue to happen, could we see education arrive in ways that we can develop people's understanding of how to perform in a competition or what to look out for, i.e., developing someone's taste? How do you distinguish what's a good eye, what's not a good eye? All these little tiny things which come down to suitability. Which is interesting because I'm currently writing something myself about the science of suitability and how we can look at key things that might trigger a thought or idea, and I think that's something that's kind of missing within our education or just in general education in women's hair, men's hair, that we don't often get taught. We get taught how to, pull hair, how to elevate hair, over direct it, cut it, but we don't get taught so much about suitability, you know.
Yeah.
But it is, and the reason is because it's very, very hard to teach. It comes from years of experience, but surely there's going to be a way where we can take all of that experience and go, right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put pen to paper. I'm going to give you an idea of some examples, and let's teach it to the world. You know, that for me is missing, and that's what I'm currently working on to try and really heighten the Menspire method and philosophy.
We're coming to the end, unfortunately. I could listen to you, right, because I could tell the place you're coming from with this is embedded in your heart, which is a lovely thing to sit and listen to. It's always nice to listen to people who know what they're talking about, of course, as well.
Yeah.
If I was to say to you, Josh, how this year has changed you on a personal level, forget about your career and everything. Is there one thing that's happened this year that's made you think, this is the way I'm going to be in the future, this is how different I'm going to be in the future?
You know what, Paul? I would say, what have I learned about myself? I've learned that I am resilient. I am able to solve problems. We had a big problem once we realized that we weren't getting any help from the government, and my landlord was also asking for the rent. It's a very, very tough position to be in because we have a huge academy space with lots of rent, no income. And even when we open the doors on July the 4th, no one's going to walk through and say, I want to learn men's hair. It doesn't work like that. Barbers have got to go back, they've got to earn money, and then they've got to make a conscious decision about education, and that's if they select us. And what I've learned is how to push business in a way that's creative, not just cutting. And, if I could say to you, Paul, I managed to figure out how to pay my rent 3 times over, that shows resilience. And that is something that I've learned about myself, that I'm not just a creative hair cutter, but I'm a creative thinker, because I'm able to look at problems and find a solution in a short amount of time. And I'm ever so grateful, and I thank God for every idea, every energy that I have, and every thought that is given to me.
Josh, I have to tell you, this is the quickest hour I've spent doing this. It's been awe-inspiring. It's been really interesting. I knew you'd be a great guest, but you're actually just a thoroughly decent guy, which is, and the amount of love that's coming in from around the world, which obviously isn't from my few followers. It's obviously from your 250,000 followers, but believe me, it's very generous. And listen, I wish you all the best. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, man.
You've been a brilliant breath of fresh air. I wish you all the best in the future. And
Thank you, man. Thank you to you for putting on these lives for everyone as well, man. You've had some fantastic guests, and you're giving people a lot of purpose to listen into, and it's been wicked, man.
It's been great fun, Josh. Thanks very much. Speak soon, mate.
All good. Take care, Paul. Bye-bye. Peace and love.